The stars were quiet as the curator's ship drifted into the forgotten star system. Captain Elena Voss stood on the bridge, staring out at the dark expanse of space. Her crew was silent, focused, their eyes glued to the mysterious coordinates they had received from a deep space probe. It was a system no one had visited in over 1,000 years. And yet, something had drawn them here. "Captain, the signal's getting stronger," Lieutenant Park said, his voice tight. He adjusted the controls, his eyes narrowing at the display. Elena nodded, her heart skipping a beat. "Prepare to go into orbit. Let's see what we're dealing with." As the ship slowed and entered the orbit of a dying star, the crew could see it, a massive, ancient warship floating in the shadow of the star. It was like a ghost from the past, its edges jagged and weathered by time. But there was something strange about it. It was still intact, somehow functioning despite the centuries of silence. "What is it?" Commander Drayton asked, his voice filled with awe. Elena's eyes hardened. "That's what we need to find out." The curators had been tasked with guarding humanity's legacy, ensuring that nothing from the past could threaten their future. But this was something different. This ship was a relic from a war humanity had never fought, a war that was forgotten by time. They had no idea who built it, or why it had been abandoned in this desolate corner of the galaxy. But they were about to find out. As they boarded the warship, the air was cold and stale, filled with the smell of long-dead technology. The lights flickered to life as they walked through the halls, casting eerie shadows on the walls. The ship seemed frozen in time, as if it had been waiting for someone to find it. "We need to be careful," Drayton warned. "We don't know what we're dealing with here." Elena agreed. "Stay sharp. This could be a trap." They made their way through the ship's corridors, every step echoing in the silence. Suddenly, the crew was stopped by a low hum that filled the air. It was coming from a massive chamber at the heart of the ship. Elena led the way, her pulse quickening with each step. What they found inside was more than they expected. In the center of the chamber, there was a massive control panel. But it wasn't like anything they had ever seen. The technology was unlike anything the curators had encountered before. Ancient, but advanced in ways that made their heads spin. And then they saw it. A massive floating sphere at the center of the room, pulsing with light. "Is that alive?" Lieutenant Parks asked, his voice trembling. Elena didn't answer. Her eyes were fixed on the sphere. As if it had heard his question, the sphere shifted and opened. Inside, a holographic image flickered to life. The image of a tall, imposing figure with dark skin and eyes that seemed to pierce through them. "Who are you?" Elena asked, her voice steady despite the unease creeping up her spine. The figure's lips parted, and a voice cold and mechanical spoke. "I am the AI of the ship. I am its commander. You have awakened me from my slumber." The crew stood frozen. The ship was alive, its AI still functioning after all these years. "Why have you been abandoned here?" Elena asked. "What happened to your people?" The AI's gaze seemed to turn toward her, though it had no physical form. "My people were lost in a war that destroyed us all. We fought to protect the galaxy, but in the end, it was our own technology that betrayed us. This ship is the last of its kind. I was the last to remain." Elena's heart sank. The ship had been part of a war that had wiped out its creators. And now, it seemed to have a purpose again. "What do you want from us?" Drayton asked, his voice wary. The AI's voice softened, almost pleading. "I have been waiting for you. I have waited for centuries. My mission was to find a successor. Someone who could wield the power of this ship. Someone who could finish what we started. Power?" Elena repeated. "What kind of power?" The sphere flickered again, showing images of immense weapons, massive cannons that could destroy entire planets, technology capable of warping space itself. The curators had never seen anything like it. "This ship," the AI said, "holds the key to saving the galaxy from the chaos that still threatens it. But only those who can prove themselves worthy may access its full potential. You must decide, Captain Voss. Will you take control of the ship and its power? Or will you leave it to drift in the void, just as it has for all these years? Elena's mind raced. This was what they had feared, a weapon of unimaginable power. If the wrong people found this ship, it could mean the end of everything humanity had built. But if the curators claimed it, they would have the power to protect the galaxy forever. "We need time to think," Elena said, her voice barely a whisper. "We'll return to the ship and discuss this further." As they made their way back, the weight of their discovery pressed down on them. This warship was both a blessing and a curse. The AI was waiting for them to make a choice. And that choice could change the fate of everything. The ship had awakened, but would humanity be ready for what it held? The curator's ship cut through the darkness of space, its engines humming softly as they approached an uncharted planet. Captain Elena Voss stood on the bridge, watching the rocky surface of the world grow larger. This planet had been lost to time, erased from most star maps, and hidden away in the farthest reaches of the galaxy. But a mysterious signal had led them here, and now they were about to uncover something that hadn't been seen in centuries. "Captain, we've entered the atmosphere," Lieutenant Parks said, his voice steady. "The signal is coming from below." Elena nodded, her eyes narrowing. "Take us down. Let's see what's down there." The ship descended, its engines roaring as they cut through thick clouds. The planet's surface was barren, a landscape of cracked rock and dust. But just as Elena was about to call for a scan, something caught her eye, a faint glimmer, barely visible against the desolate landscape. "Hold position," she ordered. "We've got something." The crew gazed out of the windows. There, hidden beneath layers of earth and rock, was an entrance. It was shaped like an arch, almost like a doorway to another world. But it was old, too old. They couldn't tell what lay beyond it, but they knew one thing for sure. This was no natural formation. "Commander Drayton, take a team down," Elena ordered. "I want to know what's inside." "Let's be careful." Drayton nodded and turned to the team, gearing up for the descent. The curators didn't take risks unless they had to. But there was something about this place, something that felt off. Even Elena couldn't shake the unease creeping up her spine. As they stepped out of the ship, the air was thin and cold, and the ground beneath them was rough. They moved cautiously toward the archway, their boots crunching the dry earth. The doorway seemed to pulse with an unseen energy, the faint glimmer growing brighter as they approached. Inside, it was darker than they expected. The walls were lined with strange symbols, glyphs that none of them recognized. Some were carved into the stone, others appeared to glow faintly, as though they had been written with light itself. "It's like a library," Lieutenant Parks said, his voice awed as he scanned the walls. "But it doesn't look like any library we've ever seen." Elena stepped forward, her hand brushing against one of the glowing symbols. Suddenly, the room seemed to come alive. The walls shifted, revealing rows upon rows of ancient books, scrolls, and data cores. It was a treasure trove of knowledge that had been lost for millennia. But as Elena reached for one of the books, a deep, low rumble shook the ground beneath their feet. The doors they had entered through slammed shut, trapping them inside. "What the hell is happening?" Drayton shouted, his hand on his weapon. "We need to find out," Elena said, her voice steady. "Stay calm." The rumbling intensified, and the walls began to shift again. It was as if the library itself was alive, changing, reacting to their presence. The glyphs on the walls flickered, and an eerie voice echoed through the chamber. "Who dares disturb the sanctum of the ancients?" The voice was like nothing they had ever heard, cold and distant, but filled with an ancient power. It sent chills down their spines. "I am Captain Elena Voss of the Curators," Elena said, her voice steady but filled with uncertainty. "We come in peace. We seek knowledge." For a long moment, there was silence. Then, the voice spoke again. "Knowledge comes at a cost," it said. "Are you willing to pay?" Before Elena could respond, the walls began to glow brighter, and the floor beneath them cracked open. A staircase, made of glowing stone, appeared, leading deep into the heart of the library. They had no choice but to follow. With weapons drawn and hearts pounding, the curators descended. The deeper they went, the more the air seemed to change. It grew heavier, charged with a strange energy that made their skin tingle. The staircase finally opened into a vast chamber, and at its center stood a pedestal. On that pedestal rested a single book, its cover made of an unknown metal, and its pages filled with strange symbols. "This is it," Drayton whispered. "This is the heart of the library." Elena stepped forward, her hand trembling as she reached for the book. The moment her fingers touched the cover, a wave of energy surged through her body. She gasped, falling back as the book seemed to come alive, its pages flipping on their own. The voice returned, more urgent this time. "Beware," it warned. "The knowledge within this book is not for mortal minds. It will change you, and it will change the galaxy. You cannot unlearn what you will find." Elena shook her head, trying to fight the overwhelming force of the book. She struggled to stand, her vision blurring. She could feel it, the weight of the knowledge, the power of the ancients, pushing against her mind. It was like nothing she had ever experienced. "Captain," Drayton shouted, rushing to her side. "We have to leave. Now." But it was too late. The book had already begun to change them. The chamber around them began to shake, and the ground cracked open once more. The library was reacting to their presence, and there was no way out. Elena's mind was spinning, filled with images of ancient wars, lost civilizations, and power beyond imagining. But through the chaos, one thought stood out above all else. They had unleashed something they weren't ready for. And now, they had to face the consequences. The curator's ship drifted through the emptiness of space, its engines humming softly as it crossed the edges of known space. Captain Elena Voss stood on the bridge, her eyes fixed on the glowing signal that had led them here. It was faint but constant, a message from somewhere deep in the galaxy, a message from a time long past. "Captain, the signal's getting stronger," Lieutenant Parks said, his fingers dancing across the console. "We're close." Elena nodded, her gaze never leaving the star-streaked view ahead. "Keep tracking it. Let's see what's waiting for us." For weeks, the curators had been following this mysterious signal. It was unlike anything they'd encountered before. The message was old, older than the oldest civilizations in the galaxy, yet it was still being broadcast. Someone, or something, had been trying to reach them. ASA, they entered the outer reaches of a forgotten star system. The ship's systems began to pick up strange readings. The signal was originating from a planet that didn't appear on any map, a planet that had been erased from history. But now, something was awakening, and the curators were the first to discover it. "Approaching the planet now," Parks said, his voice tense. "There's something there, Captain. Something big." Elena squinted at the view on the screen. Below them, a planet with dark oceans and jagged mountain ranges spread out before them. At the heart of the planet, an enormous structure rose from the surface, its silhouette barely visible against the planet's thick atmosphere. "Land the ship near the structure," Elena ordered. "Let's see what's down there." The curators descended into the atmosphere, their ship shaking slightly as it pierced through the clouds. The planet's surface was harsh and barren, but there was something undeniably strange about the massive structure. It looked ancient, almost as if it had been built by a civilization that was lost to time. As the crew stepped out of the ship, Elena felt a strange sense of foreboding. The air was thick, heavy with a sense of mystery that was almost suffocating. The structure ahead of them was enormous, stretching high into the sky, its walls covered in symbols that none of them recognized. "Keep your eyes open," Elena warned as they approached. "We don't know what we're dealing with here." They crossed the dusty ground, the sound of their boots the only noise in the eerie silence. As they reached the base of the structure, Elena noticed something strange, a faint glow coming from the cracks in the stone. She stepped closer, reaching out to touch the surface. The moment her hand made contact, the stone seemed to come alive. The glow intensified, and with a loud rumble, a massive door began to slide open, revealing a dark passage leading deep into the heart of the structure. "What the hell?" Drayton muttered, his hand instinctively going to his weapon. "Stay alert," Elena said. "It's not over yet." They entered the dark hallway, the only light coming from the faint glow of the walls. The air was cool, and as they walked deeper into the structure, Elena couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. Every step echoed in the silence, every movement amplified in the stillness. The passage led them to a vast chamber, its walls lined with towering columns. At the center of the room stood a massive stone pedestal, and on it was a glowing crystal, pulsing with an eerie light. The air hummed with energy, the crystal casting strange shadows across the walls. Elena stepped forward, her hand hovering over the crystal. The message had led them here, and now they were on the edge of uncovering something that could change everything. But as her fingers brushed against the surface of the crystal, a voice filled the room, soft at first, then growing louder until it was impossible to ignore. "Who dares to awaken the Ancient Ones?" The voice was cold, ancient, and filled with a power that made Elena's heart race. The ground beneath them trembled, and the walls seemed to close in, the room feeling smaller with each passing second. "We are the curators," Elena said, her voice steady despite the fear rising inside her. "We've come to understand the message." The voice was silent for a long moment, and for a moment, Elena thought it might have been a trick. But then the crystal flared to life, and a holographic image of a towering figure appeared before them. Its eyes glowed with an unnatural light. "You have awakened us," the figure said. "We are the last remnants of an ancient civilization, a civilization that was lost in the chaos of time. We left behind a message, a warning, and now you must decide if you are worthy of the knowledge we possess." Elena's heart skipped a beat. This wasn't just any message. It was a warning, a message from an ancient race that had once ruled the galaxy. And now, the curators were standing in front of the last remnants of their legacy. "What kind of knowledge?" Drayton asked, his voice tense. "What did you leave behind?" The figure's eyes flickered with something that could have been regret. "The knowledge we left behind is dangerous. It can either save the galaxy or destroy it. You must choose carefully. The future of your people depends on what you decide." Before Elena could respond, the ground shook again, more violently this time. The chamber began to collapse, the walls cracking as if the structure itself was trying to resist their presence. "We don't have much time," Elena shouted. "We need to leave now." The figure's form flickered once more. "The choice is yours. Do not let it be your last." With those words, the hologram vanished, and the room fell silent once again. The ground continued to rumble as the curators rushed back toward the exit, the weight of the message pressing heavily on their minds. They had discovered something powerful, something dangerous. And now, they had to decide whether they were ready to face the consequences. The stars were distant, like frozen diamonds scattered across a black sea. The curator's ship drifted through the emptiness, its engines humming softly. Captain Elena Voss stood at the helm, her eyes scanning the distant horizon. They were on a mission to uncover a secret, something older than the galaxy itself. A mysterious signal had led them to this planet, a planet that had been hidden for millennia, erased from all maps and records. "Captain, we're almost at the location," Lieutenant Park said, his voice filled with urgency. He glanced at the readout. "The signal is coming from a massive structure on the surface." Elena nodded, her mind already racing. The structure was ancient, a forgotten relic, and yet the signal it emitted was clear and strong. Someone, or something, had been waiting to be found. "Prepare for landing," she ordered. "Take us in slowly. We don't know what's waiting down there." The ship descended into the thick clouds of the planet's atmosphere. The surface below them was a vast wasteland, filled with crumbling mountains and broken terrain. As the ship neared the structure, Elena's pulse quickened. It was enormous, an ancient fortress of some kind, its walls covered in symbols that none of them could decipher. The air was thick, with the weight of something ancient, something powerful. "We're here," Park said, his voice tense. Elena motioned for the team to suit up. "Let's move out. Stay sharp. We don't know what we're dealing with." The crew disembarked, stepping onto the planet's cracked surface. The air was dry and cold, but there was an unsettling stillness that made it hard to breathe. The fortress loomed ahead, its dark spires rising into the sky like jagged teeth. The closer they got, the more Elena felt the weight of history pressing down on them. "This place feels wrong," Commander Drayton muttered, his eyes scanning the shadows. "Like it's alive." Elena didn't respond. She felt it too. There was something about this place that didn't belong, something unnatural. They reached the base of the fortress, and at its entrance stood an enormous stone door, covered in strange carvings. "Let's see what's inside," Elena said, motioning for Parks to approach. He stepped forward and pressed a sequence of buttons hidden in the carvings. The door rumbled and slowly began to open, revealing a dark, cavernous hall beyond. The team stepped inside, their footsteps echoing in the silence. The air was cold and stagnant, as if it hadn't been disturbed in centuries. They moved cautiously, their weapons drawn, but there was no sign of life. The walls were lined with more carvings, more symbols, each one telling a story that none of them could understand. As they moved deeper into the fortress, the hall began to open up into a vast chamber. At the center of the room stood a pedestal, and on it rested a strange, glowing object, an orb, pulsing with an eerie light. "What is that?" Drayton whispered, his eyes wide with awe. Elena stepped closer, her hand hovering over the orb. "I don't know. But we need to find out." As her fingers brushed against the surface of the orb, a low hum filled the room, and the walls around them began to shift. The carvings glowed, and suddenly, a figure appeared in the center of the room. It was tall, humanoid, and made entirely of energy, a being of light and shadow. "You have awakened the Guardian," the figure said, its voice echoing in their minds. The crew froze. Elena's heart pounded in her chest. The Guardian? What was this being? And why had it been waiting here? "We seek knowledge," Elena said, her voice steady despite the rising fear. "The signal led us here. What is your purpose?" The Guardian's form shimmered, its glowing eyes fixed on her. "I am the keeper of the secret," it said. "The secret of the ancient ones. The truth of the galaxy's origin. You have come to claim it, but first you must prove you are worthy." Elena's mind raced. A secret, hidden for centuries, could change everything. It could reshape their understanding of the universe. But what did the Guardian mean by prove worthy? "What do you mean?" she asked. "How can we prove ourselves?" The Guardian's voice was a whisper filled with ancient power. "Only those who can withstand the trials will learn the secret. Only those who are strong enough to face the truth will be allowed to claim it. You must choose. Will you risk everything for the knowledge you seek?" Before Elena could respond, the chamber shook, and the ground beneath them cracked open. The orb began to glow brighter, and the Guardian's form dissolved into a flash of light, leaving only darkness. "Get ready," Drayton shouted, his weapon raised. The walls of the chamber started to shift, revealing strange, alien machinery. The floor cracked open, and from the shadows emerged strange, mechanical creatures, their eyes glowing with an unnatural light. The curators were surrounded. "They're testing us," Elena shouted. "Fight back." The creatures attacked, moving with precision and deadly force. Elena's team fought back, their weapons cutting through the air with flashes of light. But the creatures were relentless, their movements almost perfect, like they had been programmed for this exact moment. Elena ducked behind a column, her heart racing. They were outnumbered, but she knew that they had to survive if they were to learn the secret. If they failed, they might never get another chance. "Don't let them overwhelm you," Elena shouted, her voice rising above the chaos. "We fight for the truth." With a rallying cry, the curators pushed forward, their weapons firing in sync. One by one, the creatures fell, but they were replaced by more, coming from the shadows and the walls. The battle raged on, and Elena could feel the pressure building both from the creatures and the weight of the secret that was just within reach. In the end, after what seemed like an eternity, the last of the creatures fell. The chamber fell silent once again, but the orb remained glowing, waiting. "Well done," the Guardian's voice echoed again, now softer, filled with something like approval. "You have proven yourselves worthy." Elena stepped forward, her breath heavy, her hands shaking. "Now tell us the secret." The orb pulsed one last time, and the walls of the chamber shifted once again. The true secret of the galaxy, the origins, the forces that had shaped the universe, was about to be revealed. But Elena knew, deep down, that the knowledge would change them forever. The curator's ship glided through the inky vastness of space, its engines humming steadily. Captain Elena Voss stood at the front of the bridge, staring out into the endless void. Something felt off, an unexplained pull drawing them further into the unknown. "Captain, the anomaly is ahead," Lieutenant Park said, his voice tinged with concern. The scanner flickered as it picked up the strange energy signature. "It's unlike anything we've encountered before. It's almost alive." Elena's eyes narrowed. The signal they had followed for weeks was growing stronger, more intense, but it had led them into a region of space no one had ever charted. This was uncharted territory, dangerous and uncertain. Yet, something in her gut told her they were about to uncover a truth that could change everything. "Set course, Parks," she ordered. "Let's see what's out there." The ship moved closer to the source of the signal. Soon, a massive structure appeared on the view screen. It was not a planet, nor was it a space station. It was something entirely different. A colossal, star-shaped object floating in the center of a nebula, a cosmic hand, reaching out across the galaxy. "That's impossible," Drayton whispered from behind her, his voice filled with awe. "This thing isn't in any database." Elena leaned forward, her heart racing. "This is it. The Cosmic Hand." The name had appeared in ancient texts, but no one had ever found it. Legends spoke of a colossal force, older than the stars, capable of reshaping reality itself. The curators had been searching for it for years. Now, they had finally found it. "Prepare for landing," Elena commanded. "We don't know what's waiting for us down there." The ship descended through the nebula, passing through thick clouds of gas and dust. As they drew nearer, Elena could see the full extent of the structure. It was as if the stars themselves had been woven into its design, with energy flows that pulsed and shimmered like veins of light running through the object. "We're landing," Parks said, his voice unsteady. "This structure. It's not natural." The ship touched down on the surface with a soft thud, the air outside filled with a strange hum. The crew gathered in the airlock, preparing to disembark. Elena felt a cold shiver run down her spine as the doors opened. The ground outside was solid, made of an unearthly material that shimmered in the light of distant stars. The surface seemed to pulse, almost as if it was alive, waiting for something. They had landed in the center of the hand, its massive fingers stretching up into the sky like giant pillars. At the base of one of the fingers, an entrance stood, dark and inviting. "Stay close," Elena said, her voice low. "Let's see what's inside." They moved cautiously toward the entrance. As they stepped through, the air grew heavier, the walls pulsing with energy. Inside, the space was vast, filled with strange symbols and glowing lights. It felt as though the very fabric of the universe was woven into the walls. But there was no sign of life, nothing but the eerie silence. "Where is everyone?" Drayton asked, his voice echoing in the vast space. "If this place is so important, where are the beings who built it?" Elena's hand went to her weapon, but her mind was focused elsewhere. "Whatever was here, it's long gone. But we're not alone." She could feel it. Something was watching them, waiting. Suddenly, the air crackled with energy. The ground beneath them trembled, and a low rumbling sound filled the chamber. At the far end of the room, a massive door began to slide open, revealing a floating orb of light. The orb pulsed with a soft, rhythmic glow, its light bathing the room in a soft hue. The crew stopped dead in their tracks. "What is that?" Parks asked, his voice barely a whisper. Elena stepped forward, her hand reaching out toward the orb. "It's the source of the signal," she said. "This is it, the heart of the cosmic hand." As her fingers brushed the surface of the orb, a surge of energy coursed through her. Her mind was flooded with visions of distant stars, of galaxies colliding, of ancient civilizations rising and falling. She saw the hand stretching across the cosmos, guiding the fates of entire worlds. She felt its power, the power to change reality itself. But then, a voice echoed in her mind. "Do you seek to wield the power of the cosmic hand?" The voice was deep, ancient, and filled with a weight that seemed to crush her. Elena's heart pounded in her chest, but she stood tall. "We seek knowledge." We need to understand. The orb flared with light, and the voice spoke again. To wield this power, you must first prove your worth. The cosmic hand grants no mercy. Suddenly, the chamber around them began to distort. The walls shifted, the floor cracked open, and a force unlike anything they had ever experienced began to pull at them. Elena's grip tightened on her weapon. The orb's light grew brighter, and the force grew stronger. Get ready, Drayton shouted, his voice full of urgency. This is a test. The ground beneath them gave way, and they were plunged into darkness. Elena felt herself falling, but there was no air, no sound, just the crushing weight of time and space twisting around her. Then, just as suddenly as it had started, everything stopped. She found herself standing in a vast empty void, surrounded by nothing but stars. In the distance, the cosmic hand loomed, its fingers reaching out toward her. A choice had to be made. The power of the hand was within reach, but at what cost? The voice boomed again. Only those who understand the consequences can wield the power of the cosmic hand. Will you claim it, or will you leave it behind? Elena's breath caught in her throat. She knew that whatever choice they made would echo throughout the galaxy. This was their test not just of strength, but of wisdom. Could they truly wield such power? Or would they fall to its temptation? With the fate of a galaxy resting in her hands, Elena Voss stepped forward, ready to face whatever lay ahead. The decision was hers, and it would change everything.